Good day, people. Today I'm going to be talking about the back view of the torso, the human back muscles, essentially, or the structure of the human back muscles. So I'm going to be talking about the basic muscles that actually, kind of make up the back muscles whenever I study it as an artist. And I'm going to sort of break it down. And whenever I do studies like this, like I keep mentioning, I do have references, and I'm going to list out the back muscles that are very essential whenever you are drawing the back. So, or the muscles that you focus on. So the first muscle, uh you know you don't I want to talk about the major muscles, like the two major muscles that you kind of have to keep in mind, and then I'm going to talk about the little muscles that you kind of have to know. You don't necessarily have to know them, but you kind of have to know the shape of them, essentially, and they are very helpful, especially when you're studying. When you're studying, you are, in as much as you are kind of having fun, and you're also trying to improve your knowledge. You're trying to make yourself a bit more better with anatomy. So I'm just going to show that here. So the first muscle is going to be, I have my reference right next to me here. We're going to talk about big shape. So the major muscles or shapes are the trapezius muscles and the latissimus dorsi. So, or traps and lats. These are the two major shapes we're going to be looking at whenever you're drawing the back. So, whenever you have, because these are the major shapes. So, when you have a back like this, you can see, let's say we have a head over here, we have the neck, right? And then I'm going to use the circle to represent the torso, and then the pelvis, right? And you want to draw the back. The main shape is this straps over here. So we have this triangular like shape at the back, like this, and then it goes up like this, and it's called the traps. Um, because of the trapezius, because of this kind of shape that it has, it makes this diamond like looking shape here, and it's kind of like a fusion of like four different, like, I wouldn't say four different muscles, but like four different groups, like, or let's say flesh or whatever, coming together to actually kind of form that diamond shape like this. So we have the traps over here, and then you have the lats over here like this. I come this way, I come this way, like this. They actually extend down to the pelvis over here, and usually these are the two main big shapes. And okay, we could add one more. We could say the deltoid, because deltoid, usually the rear delts. So we're saying this one over here, and then this one over here, and then goes down like this for the arm. So usually you're looking at the rear delts on the back view. From the front view, it's the um, anterior delts or the front delts. So these are the major shapes whenever you're looking at the back, and the rest, they are not really that necessary. But like if you're doing a study, right? If you're doing a study, let's say with these simple shapes, first of all, you can then look at a real pose like this, and because you are not seeing the muscular system, you can essentially like break this pose down and what's going on actually understand what's going on with these simple shapes like this. um I said two initially, but it's actually three. These simple shapes over here like this, and then you can see how detailed this dude's back here is, and that diamond shape that I talked about, especially depending how lean the person is as well. You can also kind of depending on how lean the person is, you can actually see how striated, that person's muscles will be, and how detailed you can represent them if you want, on your character or whatever it is you're drawing. Now, for like we've talked about the major muscles, right? We've talked about the major muscles right here, and with that we kind of understood what's going on with the back. Now we've talked about the major muscles, like the minor muscles, the ones that you can then say, okay, I kind of want to understand what's going on, um, or minor shapes. I kind of want to understand a little bit more of what's going on. So then we'll talk about something like the erector spina. Erector spina muscle. Now, if you're looking at this guy over here, it's the muscle directly below the lats. But in a lot of references of that show the human anatomy, like the back, you're going to see that they will just point to this area over here and just say erector spina, right? But the erector spina is below the lats. This entire back area, like this, is the lats. The lats goes like this. This is the lats. But then below the lats, it's the erector spina, and that is where you're going to see this muscle over here. Let me show you. You're seeing this on the left, on our left over here. That is the erector spina. You see, it says deep. That is because it is directly below the latissimus dorsi over here. So that is one muscle to kind of put in mind. That's one muscle to kind of keep in mind. The next muscle is going to be the infraspinatus. Infraspinatus. Or infraspinatus. Either ways, the infraspinatus is the muscle that is around the shoulder and scapular region, right next to like this tricep area over here. Let me see. And it's called infraspinatus because when you look at the deltoid shape over here like this, right below this deltoid shape over here, we have the supraspinatus. I believe it's Latin for superior. Supraspinatus is superior or above, and infraspinatus is inferior or below. So it's the muscle below the, like if you look at your scapula, I don't know if that's the right shape. Yeah, let's use this as a scapula. You kind of have like a bone. If you actually look at the scapula, you kind of have a bone over here, and then you have a muscle over here like this, and then you have the infraspinatus. So this is the supraspinatus, and then this is the infraspinatus. Let's look at I have internet connection. Let's look at a real image here. So this is the infraspinatus over here. This is an image of the infraspinatus. As you can see, it is below this shape over here of the spine. You're not necessarily going to always draw this, but it's just good to have like a vision of what it looks like. Look at it here. You can see the supraspinatus is above, is that little muscle that is above like this. Is that muscle above like this around the scapula that helps with shoulder movement. You're not necessarily going to see it because it's kind of covered by the delts, the delts. So that is one muscle to kind of keep in mind. First of all, we're going to join them together because there's a group of muscle over here, like over at this area here. These muscles over here, they can get a bit confusing, and I'll kind of group them, and just talk about how to actually place them. The next muscle is going to be the teres major. And we have the teres major over here. So if you look at the teres major is below the infraspinatus. The teres major is below the infraspinatus, and it's also, like I say, I keep saying, like when you're looking at these muscles, Sometimes it's just good to look at them purely from like the muscle itself and then its skeletal connection. Like for instance, here now you're saying that it's connecting from the scapula all the way to the humerus bone, right? And there are various muscles that connect to the humerus bone. We have the latissimus dorsi connects to the humerus bone, the pectoralis major as well also connects to the humerus bone. But it's also good to kind of look at this in isolation so that you get a clear view of what's going on and see the shape of the muscle, so that whenever you're seeing the overlaps of the different muscles, it's kind of going to be clearer, and then you're going to know which one is overlapping which one. So this is the teres major over here, and then the next muscle is the teres minor. The teres minor. Here it is, the teres minor, and here we have a good image of the teres major and the teres minor in one image. The infraspinatus, the supraspinatus, the teres major, the teres minor, the infraspinatus, and then the teres major is not here. Is it? Yeah, here's the teres major. So you can see the teres major is just below the teres minor, and then when you're looking at the teres minor in isolation, this is what it looks like, and then you're seeing that the teres major is directly above it. Yeah, so this is an image to kind of have in your head. You won't always have it, but just having that background knowledge is kind of cool. And then lastly, we're going to have the rhomboid. I think I spelled this wrong. Rhomboid. Last one is the rhomboid. Rhomboid is this muscle here that kind of attaches to the spine and then to the scapula itself. So we also have the rhomboid major and the rhomboid minor, but the rhomboid major is kind of what is visible whenever you are looking at the traps itself overlapping over this other muscle, over the rhomboid muscle itself. So yeah, we have that, and I'm just going to these are the group of muscles that I was talking about, that you sort of they kind of cause a little bit of confusion when you're looking at them. So that is why I just separated them from like the other muscles, like these major big muscle shapes, because those ones are quite simple to understand. But like the teres major, teres minor, rhomboid, and infraspinatus, because whenever you look at a bodybuilder, if you're drawing like a Hulk-like character and you kind of want to tackle the muscle, you're going to see something like this, and it's going to be very helpful. Well, at least this is how I study myself personally. I just break it down like this, deconstruct it to figure out how each muscle looks. And one thing I may do is that I may draw the muscles individually, like for example this bodyworksprime.com. I go to their website. You can check my other video where I actually did something like this, similar to this, similar to what I'm talking about, but for the front view of the torso. So that I will just break down this muscles. I'll break down these muscles like this, like for instance this rhomboid major, exactly what you're seeing here. I'm just going to draw the shape of the spine, and then draw the shape of the muscle itself, and then go to the infraspinatus, do the same for that, for the teres major as well, and the teres minor. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to bring it all together so that I can fully understand what is going on. When you break it down like that, it's going to be a lot more simpler to approach, no matter how thick it is for you, for things to kind of get in your head. And I can be quite thick myself, so that is just it. So I'm just going to kind of like show you, go back to the reference of how it looks. Sorry about that. So with these four muscles that are around our scapula, um let me just break those down. First of all, like those major shapes, the major shapes, I'm going to put them in red. So we have our traps over here, and then our lats. So we have those two major shapes, and then the next shapes we are going to look at, I'm going to put them in green. Sorry, I forgot to add the deltoid. You can see we have, first of all, the infraspinatus is kind of like the major, the rhomboid, I mean, is the major muscle, like is the one that's overlapping the rest, right? As you can see from here. I don't know if you can see clearly anyways, but the rhomboid is what is overlapping the rest of the muscles over here. At least it's overlapping the teres major and the infraspinatus at least. So what we're going to do right here is that just look at remember the shape of the rhomboid. Rhomboid muscle is going from the spine down to, right, like this is the shape of the rhomboid muscle, right? It's going from the spine down to the scapula. So this is how it looks, because it's going down like this, right? That is why it's having that sort of shape that it's having over here like this, right? And the same thing over here like this, right? Depending on the size of the person's back. Let's look at a real person's back. Are you seeing this guy's back? Right, exactly. So you can't necessarily see it because of the flesh, but you can sort of see the shape of his back because he's really muscular. So that's the first guy tackled. The next thing we're going to look at is the infraspinatus now. So the infraspinatus is this guy over here, that is overlapping. In this reference over here, it's the one in pink. And we're going to look at a real rhomboid major, a real infraspinatus over here. So you can sort of see the shape that it's taking, and it's sort of slanting over like this, like this. And it's sort of covering the entire, the entire scapular region like that. So the next muscle will be the teres major. So let's look at the teres major from here, over here, and that's yeah, this is the teres major. It's down over here like this. So, and because of the shape of the teres major, we've automatically overlapped with the teres minor. So this is the infraspinatus. The infraspinatus. This is our teres major. And this will be our teres minor. And this guy over here will be our rhomboids. So these basic shapes, I did mine in a very rough way. One other muscle that I forgot to mention is the sternocleidomastoid, because from the back view you can actually see it. Now if you look at this guy's head, apart from the traps which stretches from the root of his skull down to the shoulders, you can also see this muscle that is actually stretching from here all the way down to his neck. That is our sternocleidomastoid. You can see it from the root of his ear all the way down. And with that, we have a very rough view. So one thing I always do is that whenever I have something like this broken down, I will then like copy like this drawing that I have here. But I've sort of done a drawing of this, and I'm going to kind of show the time lapse of what I did. Let me just show you the drawing here. I'm going to show the time lapse later, but let me just show you the drawing here. So I did a breakdown like this. My reference for this was, gotten from Anatomy for Sculptors. It's a very good book if you're learning anatomy to actually break down muscles and, different muscular shapes and whatnot. It's very essential, like, for just copying what you see and then breaking it down and really understanding it for yourself. Um, Check out this book. It's very, very useful and effective. Uh, so what I do whenever I have those basic shapes down is I do studies and breakdowns like this. I do studies like this one in particular to properly break it down, and I have it kind of color coded so that I can remember the basic shapes that are involved over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I will do studies and break down like this to properly understand them. Like, this isn't from memory, right? This isn't from memory. I have my reference here, and then I copy directly from what I have here. So that is kind of how I work and how I do my study. And then with this information or this breakdown that I have here, what I then do is that I then take this knowledge and information that I have here, or these basic shapes. Like I said, you don't need to memorize the shape, the names of these muscles, but then I I take the information that I've done from these studies, and then I then get real references of backs, right? Muscular backs and normal looking backs. Mostly muscular backs, to be fair, in different angles. And I try to break them down so that I can sort of see what is going on and to know, like, if I truly understand it, if I truly understand like the study that I'm doing or the study that I've done. So because looking at it, when you're breaking the structure like this, it can be quite easy and misleading. But then when you actually look at a real life reference and then you want to break it down and actually study, it becomes a bit more challenging. So yeah, that's it. So what I'll do here is that I'll just pick one pose, and a pose that is a bit more challenging, because I'm going to put a time lapse of like kind of like this works that I did here, the study that I did there. I'm going to put a time lapse so that I can see the breakdown I did. Let's start with this pose, right, from this bodybuilder. I'm just gonna do that here. That is a big neck. All right, so right here we have the head. Don't worry about the shape of the head, because that's not what we're looking at. We're studying the back, right? So the main shapes are the deltoid shapes, right? The deltoid shape, the lat shape. I actually forgot. There's one more shape that actually makes up the back that I forgot to add. Apart from the lats, we have um the external obliques, which actually appears on the sides, right? When we have our lats, right, and then we have um our trap shape over here. What actually makes up that normal shape over here, right? That's our external obliques. And then our deltoid shape over here like this. So this guy over here is our external obliques. uh well, don't forget your the basic shapes, that arrow like shape. Also, the angle that you're drawing it in is going to kind of also influence how it looks. But that oversimplification of the arrow shape should always guide you, so that no matter how round whatever it is you're drawing is, you know, it's not going to get confusing. So you can see his chest is kind of poking out a bit from over here as well. That is a really thick neck, man. Don't forget the diamond shape that actually makes the trapezius, the traps, and then the deltoid shape over here. Tools that we'll talk about. So since our lat is over here like this, apparently it looks like it's actually coming here like this. We have our this space over here that is going to put our rhomboids over here like this, right? And then we're going to have our infraspinatus over here, and then we're going to have our teres major like this, and then our teres minor is going to be below. And those creasing on his skin is just like the extra muscles. So seeing it over here, the infraspinatus and then the teres major. I hope I'm right about that. I hope I'm right about that. Yeah, I'm right. Anyways, the study. So at this area, you should be, picking the pose that you prefer, the pose that you like, and then, work on it. So I'm just going to add this. This is biceps, triceps, and, brachialis. Just for fun, because I want to. Some parts of this, anyways. Right? And then we'll have our deltoid. And then we'll have our traps. Let's put these guys here like this. And then we'll have our infraspinatus. And then we'll have our teres major or gold, whatever you decide. And then we'll have our teres minor. It's this dude over here. And then the rhomboid is going to be in brown. And I did forget to put somewhere for the external obliques, so I'm just going to pick another color. So if we're comparing this, what I just did here, to the reference, to the original reference over here, I did believe I did a good job. Probably not the best, but I have in my head, I already have the general picture of what the back sort of looks like. But like I would always say, the most important thing is getting the basic shapes correctly. In as much as you want to kind of be accurate with your anatomy, you also sort of need to be accurate with the basic shapes and the basic structure. And whenever I personally draw my structure or basic shape, I use a skeletal framework for my reference. As you saw when I was drawing this entire shape, I use simple shapes like this for whatever pose that I'm trying to do, and it saves me a lot of time without overcomplicating it. And when I'm done, I then add the details of what it is that I was trying to do. So that is how I work. So you get the basic shapes like this. Some people use box, some people prefer to use boxes. I just prefer to use, like, the original skeleton, and then sometimes I could use boxes for sure, but this is what I prefer to use, and this is how I draw. And essentially, this is the basic structure of the back, well, of the back view of the torso, or the basic structure of the back, either one of them. So, what you could do is that you could get different poses of the back view. You could get something simpler like this. Um, yeah, I say simpler. You get a simple back view like this and then work on it, or you could get a much more complex, not necessarily complex, but something a bit more annoying looking like this, and then actually work on it so that you can break down the look of the back, like how the back would look, or like the muscles that are in this particular view like this. I could try it maybe later, but right now I'm not feeling like it, so I'll probably never do that. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful in breaking down the back, and like just showing my process of how I approach drawing and breaking down the back itself. If you have any questions or any comments or any contributions, leave in the comment section. Please like the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, so that you can actually get notified. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers, so please like the video and subscribe, and every little thing helps out. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.
Coming down, let it melt and soak into my skin.